Hey everyone, Jorge Gonzalez with Coldwell Banker Denver Central. Wanted to start talking about a trend that I have been noticing, talking about more buyer activity out there, more buyers applying for mortgages. There have been some headlines, more headlines about there's more inventory on the marketplace. But obviously if there's more buyer activity, that will ultimately result in more sales. So let's take a look at the numbers. Now I have 8 different neighborhoods, 4 in Denver and 4 in Denver suburbs that I will talk about. And there's a little bit of a mixed bag, but that is to be expected. Not every neighborhood is going to be the same. Different neighborhoods have different realities. Some neighborhoods have more single-family homes, some have more townhomes, some have more condos. So let's get into the data and see what it tells us. Starting off in Denver, Denver's Park Hill neighborhood has seen in the last 3 months 87 transactions, which would be an annual pace of 348. Now, sales in the last year were 277, so the 3-month pace is definitely a lot faster than the year pace. 1 to 2 year sales were 266, and 2 to 3 year sales were 396. That 3-month pace is definitely closer to the 2 to 3 year sales pace compared to the last year or 1 to 2 years ago. So that's a good sign. Now Park Hill, compared to a year ago, does have more inventory. Right now Park Hill ranges between 2.1 and 2.7 months of inventory. A year ago it was more like 1.1 to 1.2 months. So that's double for all intents and purposes. But still more sales, good sign. Park Hill, pretty classic Denver neighborhood. Always had a great reputation in the city and has been solid for a long time. Similarly to Park Hill, Wash Park, iconic Denver neighborhood, one of Denver's most iconic parks, Denver's 3rd largest park. People love that neighborhood. I mean, the average price of a house in Wash Park is over $1 million, even on the west side, quote unquote, the cheaper side of the park. The east side, it hasn't quite reached $2 million, but it's not too far away. So, you know, expensive neighborhood. But this very expensive, very iconic neighborhood has still seen 90 sales in the last 3 months. Sorry about that. That would be an annual equivalent of 360. For context, in the last year, 286 transactions, 277 between 1 and 2 years ago, and 429 between 2 and 3 years ago. So the 3-month pace is closer to the 2 to 3 year pace than the last year or 1 to 2 years ago. Good sign for Wash Park. Similarly, Cherry Creek, Denver's luxury shopping district. Average price of a home in Cherry Creek is over $2 million. Cherry Creek North is definitely over $2 million. Cherry Creek East is under $2 million, but you know, it's still over 1.5. So let's see, 52 transactions in the last 3 months. That's an annual sales pace of 208. In the last year, Cherry Creek saw 151 sales, 195 between 1 and 2 years ago, and 234 between 2 and 3 years ago. Now, Cherry Creek definitely sees a higher percentage of cash transactions, probably 30 to 40% in this neighborhood. A lot of wealth, a lot of money. But, you know, this 3-month pace is behind that 2 to 3 year pace, obviously in a lower interest rate environment compared to now, but definitely ahead of the 1 to 2 year pace, slightly and somewhat significantly ahead of the pace of the last year. So let's just see if things kind of stay that way. Going to downtown Denver, obviously high density condo urban environment, no single family homes. Downtown is trying to clean itself up a little bit. The 16th Street Mall construction project that's supposed to end at the end of 2025 will probably help that. Maybe some of the city leaders will get some traction on lowering crime and just cleaning up downtown a bit, reviving it to what it was at one point in time before COVID, for example. Anyway, 65 sales in the last 3 months. So that would be an annual pace of 260, which is less than the 281 transactions it's seen in the last year. It saw 338 between 2 and 3 years ago, and it saw 575 between 2 and 3 years ago. 2 to 3 years ago, lower interest rate environment, and there were also a couple of higher end condo buildings right by Union Station and Coors Field that were being finished at that time, which is part of the story of the higher sales, but we'll just see what happens with downtown going forward in the next 12, 24, 36 months and see how things change. Downtown does have higher inventory right now, about 7 months. A year ago, downtown was closer to like 5 months of inventory, and 2 years ago it was probably between 3 and 4 months. So it has seen a rise in inventory. Similarly, all of these neighborhoods have seen more inventory, even Wash Park and Cherry Creek. Moving out to the suburbs, let's start with the Green Mountain neighborhood in Lakewood. Great neighborhood, a lot of single family homes, hiking trails, close proximity to Red Rocks, a lot of cool features, nice homes out there. 51 sales in the last 3 months. So that's an annual equivalent of 204, assuming that sales pace stays. Obviously time will answer that question. But Green Mountain the last year has seen 190 sales. So the 3-month pace is slightly ahead of the year pace. What else do we have? It saw 202 sales between 1 and 2 years ago. That's pretty much the pace that it's on right now. And it saw 238 between 2 and 3 years ago. Applewood, also in Lakewood, but further north in Lakewood, getting close to the Lakewood-Arvada border. Higher end suburb neighborhood. Applewood is gorgeous. There are a lot of beautiful single-family homes. Doesn't see as many sales compared to other neighborhoods, partially because of the price, and you just don't see as many, listings come up out there. But 14 sales in the last 3 months. So that would be an annual pace of 56. Compared to, in the last year, Applewood saw 72 home sales. So the sales pace, the 3-month sales pace has slowed down. It's 97 sales between 1 and 2 years ago, and 106 between 2 and 3 years ago. Low interest rate environment. So that pace has slowed down. We'll see if that continues, or is there a pickup in both inventory and sales. The Stonegate neighborhood, which is in Parker, South Metro Denver. 44 sales in the last 3 months. So that would be an annual equivalent of 176, which is ahead of the 149 sales it's seen in the last year. 1 to 2 years ago, it saw 192 sales, which that sales pace is a little faster than that 3-month pace. And then it saw 189 between 2 and 3 years ago. So the current pace is ahead of the last year, but behind the 1 to 2 year and the 2 to 3 year sales pace, kind of in between the two. And then if you go to the Columbine neighborhood in Littleton, there's Columbine Knolls, Columbine Hills, Columbine Knolls South, Columbine Knolls North, Ken Carroll Pierce area of Littleton. So 34 sales in the last 3 months. That annual equivalent would be 136, compared to, there's actually been 112 transactions in the last year, 116 between 1 and 2 years ago, and 153 between 2 and 3 years ago. So this 3-month pace is definitely ahead of sales in the last year or 1 to 2 years. So hope you find this information helpful. If you'd like more information on your neighborhood, don't hesitate to reach out and ask. Take care.